So guys, today on All Sports Center, I'm going to be going over a college football game preview over the 2019 Hawaii Bowl between Hawaii and BYU. Should be an interesting game here. Both these teams I think are pretty evenly matched overall. Their previous games though, they both had losses. Hawaii lost to Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game 31-10. Then BYU lost to San Diego State in the last game of the regular season 3-13. So yeah, both teams are coming off losses, but overall, I mean, they're pretty evenly matched. It should be a pretty good one, and I'm actually looking forward to this one. Some key stats, though. For Hawaii, McDonald was 20 for 36, 241 yards, and 1 interception in that game. Had no touchdowns, even though he had 241 yards. And same thing for Wilson for BYU, 31 for 53. He was huge. He was used a ton in that game. 53 times he threw for 316 yards and 2 interceptions. So yeah, overall, I mean, both those quarterbacks had pretty good days, pretty good games against those two teams. But overall, I mean, McDonald hasn't been as consistent of a quarterback as Wilson has been all season, so that's something you got to keep track of for sure. Yeah, this game's going to be on Tuesday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, 8 p.m. Eastern Time in Honolulu, Hawaii. Spread currently says BYU by 2. The FPI is saying BYU 53%. Then Vegas is saying 36-29 BYU. So overall, I mean, all three sources are saying BYU, but in a close game. Vegas is saying it by a touchdown. But overall, I mean, the spread BYU by 2. I mean, you also got to consider that this is in Hawaii's home stadium, and it's not really treated like a home game for Hawaii, but it pretty much is, with it being in Hawaii's home stadium, and it's going to be a big trek for BYU. So that's something you got to consider as well. BYU is going to have the factors of traveling here in this one. But yeah, then again, I mean, BYU, I mean, they have had a tougher schedule. They do have a harder strength of schedule for sure. Hawaii being in the Mountain West. I mean, the Mountain West ain't even that bad of a conference. I'd say they're probably the 7th best conference overall. That'd be right behind the AAC, the American Athletic. But yeah, overall, I mean, Hawaii this season, they really have not had, I mean, all that tough of a schedule. So BYU, of course, I think BYU's had a much tougher schedule. But stat-wise, Hawaii does lead BYU. Points per game, 33.6. Points allowed per game, 31.7. They have 325 pass yards per game. So overall, I mean, McDonald is used quite a bit. 143 rush yards per game, and then 225 pass yards allowed, along with 200 even rush yards. And for BYU, 28.0 points per game, along with 24.4 points allowed, 285 pass yards per game, and 153 rush yards per game. And they've allowed 203 pass yards and 181 rush yards. So overall for Hawaii, I mean, their defense is going to need to really step up in this one. And honestly, looking at this, I mean, with BYU allowing 203 pass yards per game, I think the quarterbacks are going to be huge in this one, especially with Hawaii. I mean, 225 pass yards allowed per game. That is crazy. And then 200 rush yards. That is insane as well. Typically, you'll see the rush yard number to be right around 150 or below. 200 is really excessive. So I do expect this to be more of a high-scoring shootout game. Should be pretty interesting. Hawaii's record is 9-5. BYU is 7-5. And now looking at this is your previous 5 games, both these teams. Hawaii once again lost to Boise State. They beat Army though the week before, 52-31, good win there. Beat San Diego State, which is a team that BYU lost to. They beat them by 3. Beat UNLV 21-7 and beat San Jose State 42-20 or 42-40. Sorry. For BYU, on the other hand, they lost to San Diego State, beat up UMass as expected, 56-24. Beat Idaho State up 42-10. Beat Liberty 31-24 and beat up Utah State 42-14. And Utah State really is not all that bad of a team. I mean, they made a bowl game and they ended up they lost to Kent State last night in that bowl game. But overall, then again, that's on the road. That is a pretty big win there against Utah State. So you gotta remember that. I mean, especially looking at the beginning of the season for BYU, they did have a couple of tough losses in there. But I mean, if you look back at that, BYU definitely has played tougher opponents, and even though the record is worse than Hawaii, they still played a much tougher schedule, and they've got a more experienced team than Hawaii. But overall, here's some key points. BYU has been very inconsistent, that is for sure. I mean, one game they can get absolutely destroyed, and another game they can play extremely dominant, like that Utah State game where they won 42-10. So yeah, I mean, if they really need to come to play in this one. And I think BYU has shown well in big games. They have lost a couple of big games, especially at the beginning of this year, or at the beginning of the year. But I mean, it's a bowl game against Hawaii. You'd expect them to come to play because it's more of a bigger game. So that's something you got to keep track of. But yeah, Hawaii lost to Boise State twice. Boise State took care of 2 of Hawaii's losses. That means, I mean, Boise State was obviously the best team in the Mountain West Conference, but Hawaii, then again, I mean, you got to at least beat Boise State once. That would have been huge for that team. But yeah, Hawaii has crumbled in big games. I mean, that's kind of the differences between both these two teams. Looking back at Hawaii's schedule, I mean, especially the big games, they just have not played very well. Impacts of this game for both teams, of course, Hawaii has been they've been a great season they've had a great season here this year, and this is one of the better ones on record for Hawaii. So if they can finish off this year with a win in a bowl game against BYU, I'd say that'd be a great way to end the year for Hawaii. Then again, it already has been a really successful season for Hawaii, but it would just be great for them to be able to tap off the season with a win against BYU. For BYU, on the other hand, I mean, they've had a pretty decent year themselves. I mean, they've gotten a couple of pretty good wins in there, and a win against Hawaii then again would also be really beneficial for that program. But how would both teams win? I mean, in my opinion, it's going to be a pretty high scoring one, so you've got to get up on the board first, and you've got to get up to a pretty quick lead. And I think if like a certain team, like let's say Hawaii or BYU, if anyone gets up like let's say 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think they probably have the game handled. Of course, when it's a shootout, anything can happen. But yeah, overall, my final score for this one, I'm going to say BYU wins at 38-31, and more of a high-scoring one once again. Halftime score is going to be 24-17 Hawaii. I think Hawaii sticks around for the majority of this game. This is going to be one of your better bowl games, I think, of the first parts of this bowl season. Yeah, I mean, both teams are pretty evenly matched, and so that's going to make for a pretty good game in my opinion. But yeah, I think that Hawaii, they probably will get up to a first lead, but then BYU in the second half, I think they just take over. I think BYU is the stronger team overall. They're going to have more endurance, and that's what gives them the win in the end. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on this game in the comments below. Do you think that Hawaii can pull the upset? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, then again, I mean, Hawaii's basically got home field advantage. This is at their home stadium, and it's right where they want BYU to be. So, yeah, once again, let me know your guys' thoughts. Let me know your score predictions in the comments below as well for this one. Should be interesting. Thank you guys all for watching once again. Stay tuned for more bowl previews coming up over the next week or so. We're going to really be grinding these out. We got a little bit behind over the last couple weeks. Of course, I've been doing finals and stuff like that, trying to finish off the semester. So I've been crazy busy, but I'm done with those now. So we're going to be cranking out possibly 3 to 4 previews a day. So stay tuned for that. Sorry if it's going to be spammy. But yeah, we're just going to try to get as many previews out as we can. Thank you guys all for watching once again, though. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central.